In 1985, you are 30 years old and you have just been fired from the company you founded. Not laid off. Not asked to step down quietly. Fired. Publicly. By the board of directors you assembled from the company that bears the fruit you named it after. The press writes that you are finished, that the most famous dropout in Silicon Valley has finally proven that brilliance without maturity is just noise. 12 years later, you return to Apple. It has weeks of cash left before bankruptcy. You proceed to build the most valuable company in the history of human civilization. This is your life. You're Steve Jobs. And it begins with a decision that was not yours to make. You are born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California. Your biological mother is Joanne Stiebel, 23 years old, unmarried. In 1955 America, this is not a manageable situation. Your biological father is Abdel Fattah Jandali, a Syrian graduate student. Her family will not accept the relationship. The baby you will be given up for adoption. Your biological mother had one condition. The adoptive parents must be college graduates. Paul and Clara Jobs are not college graduates. But they want a child desperately. And they promise to send you to college. You're Steve Jobs. Named by people who chose you. That matters more than you know. You grow up in Mountain View, California. Your father Paul is a mechanic. He builds things with his hands. He teaches you that the back of a cabinet matters as much as the front. Nobody will see the back, you tell him. He says, but you will know it is there. And that matters. This conversation will influence every product you ever make. You are a difficult child. Curious beyond what the classroom can contain. A teacher named Imogene Hill changes everything. She does not manage your energy. She redirects it. You test at the level of a high school senior while in 4th grade. At 13, you need a part for an electronics project. You look up Bill Hewlett in the phone book and call him. Bill Hewlett answers. He talks to you for 20 minutes. He gives you the parts. He offers you a summer job. This is the first lesson in something you will practice your entire life. The worst answer is no. But most of the time, people say yes when asked directly and honestly. At school you meet Steve Wozniak. He is 5 years older. He is the most technically gifted person you have ever met. You are not the better engineer. You will never be the better engineer. But you see what the engineering can become. Wozniak builds things. You see the world they could create. You get into Reed College in Portland, Oregon. Reed is expensive. Your parents spend their life savings on the first semester's tuition. After one semester, you drop out. Not because college is too hard. Because you cannot justify the cost against what you are learning. But dropping out is also the beginning of one of the most consequential decisions in the history of design. Because after dropping out, you take only the courses that interest you. One of them is calligraphy. You learn about serif and sans serif typefaces. About varying the space between letters. About what makes great typography. It seems completely useless at the time. 10 years later, it becomes the first computer with beautiful typography. You go to India. Not to build a business. To find something you cannot name yet. India teaches you that intuition is valid. That the felt sense is real. You come back and begin studying Zen Buddhism. Zen's central principle becomes yours. Simplicity is not the absence of complexity. It is the mastery of it. 1976, you are 21 years old. Wozniak has built something extraordinary. A personal computer. Not a computer for companies. A computer for people. You found Apple Computer Company on April 1, 1976. The garage is the office. Your father's workbench is the production line. The Apple II sells. Year 1, $2.7 million. Year 2, $7.9 million. Year 3, $49 million. Apple goes public in December 1980. The largest IPO since Ford Motor Company in 1956. You are 25 years old. You are worth $256 million. You visit Xerox PARC in 1979. Xerox has built a computer with a graphical interface. Icons. Windows. A mouse. Xerox does not understand what they have. You understand it completely. In 3 minutes. You go back to Apple and redirect the entire Macintosh project. January 24, 1984. The Macintosh launches. You pull it from a bag. It turns on. It says hello. The crowd erupts. They have never seen anything like it. Then Apple brings in John Sculley. The relationship deteriorates. The board sides with Sculley. In September 1985, you resign from Apple. You are 30 years old. You built this company from a garage. Now you are leaving. You found Next Computer. You invest $50 million of your own money into Pixar. In 1991, a British scientist at CERN uses a Next Computer to create the World Wide Web. In 1995, Pixar releases Toy Story, the first fully computer-animated feature film in history. $273 million at the box office. Pixar goes public. You own 80%. In the wilderness years, while Apple fell apart without you, you built the company that invented modern animated film. 1996. Apple is dying. 90 days of cash before it cannot make payroll. Apple buys Next for $429 million. You return as CEO. You take a salary of $1 per year. The first thing you do is cut the product line from dozens of models to 4. 1998. The iMac. A computer in candy colors that your grandmother could set up and use. Apple is saved. 1997. The iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. 2003. iTunes Store launches. In its first week, 1 million songs are purchased. January 9, 2007. You walk on stage and say, every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. Today we are introducing 3 revolutionary products. The first is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. The third is a breakthrough internet communications device. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. The audience erupts. Technology has changed. 2008, the App Store. 2010, the iPad. 1998. You are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. You try alternative medicine for 9 months. You later say this was a mistake. The surgery happens. You return to Apple. In August 2011, you resign as CEO. On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs dies. He is 56 years old. Apple stores around the world become memorials overnight. Being fired from Apple was the best thing that ever happened to you. You said so yourself. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Without the firing, there is no Next. Without Next, there is no Mac OS X. Without Mac OS X, the iPhone software does not exist. The exile produced everything. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. The calligraphy class. The India trip. The firing. The decade at Next and Pixar. The return. None of it made sense while it was happening. All of it makes complete sense looking back. He did not change technology. He changed how humans relate to technology. Before Apple, computers were tools for experts. After Apple, they are extensions of human thought. That is your life. You're Steve Jobs. Abandoned at birth. Raised by a mechanic who taught you that invisible work must be perfect. Fired at 30 from the company you built. Returned at 42 to save it. And at 56, he had already built the most valuable company in human history, changed the music industry, created modern animated film, and built the device that every human being on Earth now carries in their pocket. Trust that the dots will connect. Because they always do, but only looking backward. Stay hungry. Stay foolish.